Very excited to connect with you and have you on board today.
Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
I love it, man. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you that are joining us maybe a little later from this morning, my name is Tom Davis. I'm a senior partner manager here at ShipBob. And I'm very excited to introduce you to John Wharf. He's a solutions engineer manager at EasyPost, where he currently manages the solutions engineering team. And what that team does is they're actually in charge of customer implementation, onboarding, enterprise support, et cetera. He's got about over 3 years of consulting in the shipping logistics technology space. He's helped hundreds of customers utilize EasyPost's multi-carrier shipping API, and as well understanding and leveraging data from the pre-shipment to post-delivery process. So please don't forget to add your questions to the chat there. If you've got questions about all things EasyPost, shipping, fulfillment, et cetera, John is certainly the guy to talk to. John, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, and looking forward to hearing what EasyPost has seen over the last couple days with Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. And thanks everybody for joining. It's a pleasure to be here and to be able to share with you guys. Basically, everything that happens during peak season is kind of a macrocosm of everything that happens throughout the rest of the year. Doing this for a number of years and EasyPost existing for even longer, we've seen some tried and true approaches to the e-com business that can help you in all of your shipping and logistics needs. Everything that may affect you is like a little tiny blip on the radar in a month like, March or April, suddenly can become very, very significant in months like November, December, January. And I'm sure that anyone who has ever worked with an e-com, fulfillment, logistics, anything like that knows that whatever works, you have to make sure that it's in place before peak season so that everything will go well. This is just a quick agenda, not going over it in detail because we'll go over it in depth here in the rest of the presentation. One of the biggest things that we provide here at EasyPost is a multi-carrier solution to shipping. What we have seen throughout our entire history as a shipping postage provider is that the more carrier options that you have, the better. It frees you up for a lot of different options, not only in cost savings, but also in speed to your customer, which can be huge. Anyone who's in the e-com business knows that you're not just selling products, you're selling your brand, and you want people to return, you want people to be dedicated customers. And the way to do that is making sure that the process from the time that they click to order a product all the way until it's delivered to their door is seamless, it's good, they understand what's happening. And the best way to do that is to employ a multi-carrier strategy. As you can see here in this graph, most shippers who are shipping significant volume have already kind of adopted and are adhering to a multi-carrier strategy. The olden days of picking one specific carrier, such as a FedEx or UPS, and doing all of your volume through it has gone away. People understand there are different service levels, different options, different availability to different carriers throughout the entire year. And this is especially true during peak season. Where you may historically have just bought 2 days labels and tried to get things to your customers that way. Now with a bunch more regional carriers, you can do things like same day, next day delivery, depending on where your warehouses, your distribution centers, or even your ship from store locations are located. By adopting a multi-carrier strategy, you are opening yourself up to a whole bunch of opportunities that you don't have when you have a more narrow view of your shipping stack. So two of the biggest things that we have seen, especially over the last few peak seasons, are outages for specific carriers and also issues where carriers have started only accepting certain percentages of overall volume. If you have your major carrier come to you and they're the only one you rely on, and all of a sudden they're telling you they're only going to accept 70% of your volume, you're going to be scrambling, trying to figure out how to get those other parcels out the door into your customers. With a multi-carrier approach, you're never, ever bottlenecked by any specific carrier's volumetric requirements. Instead, you can, at a glance and at a touch, switch over to a separate carrier and provide that same level of service that your customers have come to expect from you from a completely different carrier, and they're usually none the wiser. Furthermore, different carriers will have different delays, as well as putting in your hands the power to negotiate better rates with all of your shipping partners. We all know that one of the biggest games that everyone who's in the shipping world has to play is being able to prove to carriers that you have the volume that makes it worth their time to give you discounted rates. Through opening yourself up to a multi-carrier strategy, you are able to use your volume to work for you. You can make sure that you're always getting good rates as well as really fast speed, as that's what has come to be expected by all consumers within the current market. They want things to come to them quickly, and they want to pay as little for shipping as possible. And the best way to do that is by opening up your portfolio to a litany of different carriers. This here is just a map of the majority of the regional carriers that EasyPost supports in the domestic United States. As you can see, coverage is getting wider and wider every single year. And regardless of where you're located, or maybe where your different distribution centers or warehouses are, there is likely a regional carrier in the area that can open up possibilities for things like same day, next day, or 3-day delivery without relying on some of the larger national carrier brands to get your goods to your customers. Most of the time, these include things like losing seasonal surcharges or fuel surcharges, as well as opening up the possibility to have direct from your warehouse to a customer within a very short period of time without breaking the bank. Anyone who historically has done things like just buy 2-day labels from a national carrier knows that that cost adds up really, really quickly. By leveraging some of this regional carrier network, you're able to shorten the time to delivery for the vast majority of your customers, as well as save money based on a completely different approach. Rather than just relying on a certain service or a certain type of shipping, you now have the world at your fingertips to make sure that your customers are happy and they get their goods within a reasonable amount of time. As we know, one of the biggest detriments, especially during peak, is downtime. If you're ever in a position where you suddenly can't make postage, the cost can be enormous. This is just some quick calculations that we did based off of the vast majority of the user base on the EasyPost platform. We were able to see that during peak season, you can generate anywhere from $50 for really, really small shippers up to about $3,000 per second. This means that every second, every minute, every half hour, whatever time you want to slice it into, that you are down and unable to print postage, the cost adds up almost exponentially. We know that these outages, as you can see on the last graphic here, they can be anywhere between a couple $100,000 to over $1 million that is just going out the door because you can't get parcels out to your customers. Once again, this goes back to what we talked about before. The more carriers you have at your fingertips and the more availability that you have to switch between those carriers guarantees that any specific carrier going down, having outages, having issues, won't affect your overall shipping approach, and you will still be able to get all of your goods out to your customers in a reasonable amount of time. As part of the core competency of EasyPost, we recognize this really, really early on. And what we have done is we have put reliability and uptime as the top priority in every single integration that we've built. We strive to always have 4 nines uptime. And if any of you know anything about uptime, you know that that task is gargantuan. It requires a ton of engineers and a kind of dedicated services, sentries, everything else to let us know if there is even the smallest issue with any of our shipping partners so that we can quickly diagnose and consult with them so that they can switch gears and still maintain all of their shipping regardless of any individual issues with carriers. So far, we have 4 years without any major outages during the peak season, and we hope to keep that record going for the next 30, 40 years. It's probably the biggest important factor to using EasyPost as your main label provider. Once again, our core competency comes down to a label. Within our own system, we refer to it as a shipment. And a shipment, as any of you know, can break down into various parts, all of which are important to the overall approach to shipping, whether it be from a brand, a 3PL, a warehouse, or anything else. As such, we have built all of our accessory services out to the end of making sure that the 2 most important things in the logistic world are appreciated and adhered to, that being speed and cost. To that end, some of our individual product offerings include address verification. So we went in and we got CAS certified by the USPS. Ultimately, what this signifies to you or to any of your shippers is we don't care whether or not Google says that an address exists. We want to know whether or not the Postal Authority has flagged that address as deliverable, meaning that they can receive parcels, letters, flats, whatever it may be at that address. We have 99.8% accurate verification, and we get all of our files directly from the United States Postal Service so that you won't have any issues with return to sender, things being lost, things being destroyed, or anything else by knowing ahead of time that the address that you are shipping to for your customer is valid and can receive parcels at that address. Next up is the rating API. This, once again, to beat the dead horse, goes back into your ability to compare rates from multiple carriers against each other. It allows you to, at a glance, look at different service levels offered by different carriers and choose the one that best fits your specific business model, whether that may be really slow and really inexpensive shipping or really quick and more expensive shipping. Either way, you at your fingertips have the ability to select the rate that best fits with what you want to provide and that customer experience that will guarantee that people keep coming back again and again to experience shipping with you. To that end, one of our most recent and the product that I am probably most excited about is our Smart Rate API. Basically, it is a rating engine that not only will return you specific service levels and the rates associated with them, but also does accurate time and transit predictions based on that specific service going between those two zip codes. We take a look back at hundreds of thousands of historical shipments that are between two specific points using all of the different service levels that you are shopping with. Based off of our analysis, we are able to accurately predict how long it will take for a parcel to get from the time it's labeled and ingested from that specific carrier all the way to your customer's doorstep. This allows you to be able to accurately and predictably shop rates against each other and choose the cheapest rate that will still guarantee an SLA that your customers have come to expect. This is a game changer, right? The two biggest things, as I mentioned before, that every consumer and shipper alike have come to rely on over the last few years are speed and cost. This allows you to make sure that you are always taking both of those considerations into mind as you select each individual label for the parcels that are going out the door. Next up, obviously, as a consumer, one of the most important things to always have at your fingertips is tracking. People want to know where their goods are and when they're expected to arrive. We allow for tracking on any of our supported carriers that keep track of that specific parcel from the time that it is ingested all the way up until when it is finally marked as delivered to your customer's door. Throughout peak season, one of the biggest customer support costs that every single company has to deal with is people writing in simply to understand where their goods are. What we do is we try to eliminate that by integrating directly with the carriers and providing up to date, up to time, accurate information about the status of their parcel and where it sits within the mail stream. Finally, we have some insurance offerings where you can actually insure your parcels directly through EasyPost, rather than relying on built-in or baked-in insurance that are available on certain service levels from certain carriers, but not others. We take all of the thinking out of it and allow you to purchase insurance for any parcel purchased through the EasyPost platform and make sure that that parcel arrives safely at your customer without damage, without mishandling, and that it doesn't get lost somewhere along the way. Once again, one of the unspoken truths about peak season is that we focus a lot on all of the outbound goods, right? Everything, whether it be holiday shipping, big sales around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever it may be. But the other big portion of this that is just as important to a consumer is the returns process. Peak season doesn't end on December 26th. If anything, it's about halfway through. After that, gears switch and you have to start taking into consideration a large amount of returns. The new expectation for most consumers is an easy to understand and easy to process return. The ability to take a good and easily ingest it back into the mail stream so that they can either do an exchange, a refund, whatever it may be. Hassle-free is what we like to call them here internally. And this is one of the biggest tools that you have in your tool belt to ensure recurring customers who want more experience with your brand. They can be really interested in the goods that you have to offer, and they can have a good ship from store to them experience. But if the returns process is a nightmare, it is significantly less likely that they are going to return in the future to continue to buy goods from any e-commerce brand, regardless of who they are. This is just a little bit of flavor text that tells the story of EasyPost, but ultimately I wanted to go back to the two most important factors that every shipper needs to consider in order to make sure that both their consumers and their bottom line are happy. And those two things are speed and cost. Our approach has always been one where we try to consult people and not break their already existing business decisions. This is why we built out tools such as Smart Rate that allow you to make intelligent decisions about each and every parcel that leaves so that you can know exactly when to expect those goods to arrive to your customer, as well as how much each individual service level and label will cost you. By giving you the true ability to compare and contrast different carriers' offerings and to expand the world beyond just a single carrier, but to instead allow you to ship among 60, 70, 80 different carriers within your region and your different shipping lanes, you now have the power to make the best decisions possible, not only for yourself, but also for that customer experience that will continue to drive customers back to you time and time again. Excellent. That is my presentation for today, and I would like to open up the time if there are any questions that anybody has for me.
John, thank you so much. That was awesome. I do have a question for you. You mentioned a moment ago about kind of this notion of a smart decision product or functionality. Is that something that's manual that the individual seller must go in and enable with each shipment? Is it automated? Is it per a SKU basis? How does somebody leverage a solution like that?
So basically within the EasyPost system, a shipment is created and it's exactly the basic information that you expect. It's an origin address, destination address, and then parcel information. Once the shipment is created, you can pass that shipment ID that is created into our Smart Rate API. At that point, there will be a confidence interval assigned to both the service levels and the time in transit for each service that is returned for that product. So at a glance, you're able to see with a 90% accuracy estimate, this specific service level will arrive at my customer within 3 days transit time. The hope is that it will be built in programmatically, so it actually doesn't require any manual effort at all from the shipper, but instead you can establish certain rules about the confidence that you want to enable within EasyPost, and then we make carrier and service selection extremely easy on the back end.
That's awesome. And I've got to ask you, based with all the data that you're seeing, are you seeing uptick in 2-day, standard mail? What seems to kind of generally be some of the more common shipping options that our merchants are choosing, or rather their clients are?
Yeah, so great question. And I think that we see a similar pattern emerge every single year. Typically throughout the main bulk of the year, you see a lot more slow service levels used, whether it be, USPS first class or other slow service levels. As we get closer and closer to peak, obviously customer demand becomes much higher. And we see a huge increase of same day, next day, 2-day, and 3-day delivery. It's kind of the world that we're all now in, where customers expect it really rapidly, and that becomes even more significant during peak.
Got it. Does the merchant need to do anything to prepare for that? Is that all built in? Or is that just kind of the world that we live in now, where it's all included and it's just a matter of expecting those quicker shipping times and potentially an expedited shipping cost?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And the reason I had a slight smirk on my face is, unfortunately, yeah, that's the world that we all now live in. Customers have come to expect really quick shipping. And that goes back to kind of my first point, which is the best way that you can make sure that you're not breaking the bank by offering quicker shipping options is having more carriers and service levels available to you. Whereas historically, to your point, people were just going out and buying 2-day labels for $12 a pop. If you can get the same exact time in transit for a $4 label, that's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, John, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today.